Hashtag the woman I loved in school walked back into my life, asking me to fight her divorce. Hashtag a story of second chances, healing, and the courage to love again. The rain was falling in sheets that October evening when I first heard the knock on my door. I remember because I had just poured myself a glass of whiskey, the same ritual I performed every night to numb the loneliness that had become my constant companion. At 35 years old, I had achieved everything society told me would bring happiness. I had a successful law practice specializing in family law, a beautiful apartment overlooking the city skyline, and enough money to buy anything I wanted. But there was a hollow space inside my chest that no achievement could fill, a void that had existed for 15 years, ever since I watched the only woman I ever truly loved walk out of my life and into the arms of another man. My name is Daniel Morrison, and this is the story of how love found me again when I had completely given up on ever finding it. I walked to the door that rainy evening expecting perhaps a delivery or maybe my neighbor asking to borrow something. What I found instead was a ghost from my past, standing there soaking wet, mascara running down her cheeks, trembling like a leaf in the autumn wind. Sarah Chen. The woman who had occupied every corner of my heart since the moment I first saw her in our high school English class. The woman whose smile could light up the darkest room and whose laugh sounded like music to my ears. The woman who had chosen someone else and left me broken in ways I never fully recovered from. She looked at me with those same beautiful brown eyes that had haunted my dreams for 15 years, and in that moment, time seemed to collapse. We were 18 again, sitting in the back of the library, passing notes to each other, stealing glances when we thought no one was looking. We were 20, at our college graduation, when she told me she had accepted a proposal from Marcus Webb, the wealthy businessman her parents had always wanted her to marry. We were standing in the parking lot of that graduation ceremony, and I was watching my entire future crumble before my eyes. "Daniel," she whispered, her voice cracking with emotion. "I need your help. You're the only one who can save me." I stood there frozen, unable to process what was happening. Part of me wanted to slam the door in her face, to protect myself from the pain she had caused me all those years ago. But another part of me, the part that had never stopped loving her despite every logical reason to move on, reached out and pulled her inside from the rain. Before you continue reading, if this story is already touching your heart, please take a moment to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. Your support means everything to us and helps us create more stories that inspire, heal, and remind us all that love is always worth fighting for. Now, let's continue with Daniel and Sarah's incredible journey, ****. I gave her a towel and some dry clothes, watching as she tried to compose herself in my living room. The years had been kind to her physically. At 35, she was even more beautiful than I remembered, with a few delicate lines around her eyes that spoke of laughter and tears in equal measure. But there was something different about her now, something broken that I recognized immediately because I saw the same thing every time I looked in the mirror. "I know I have no right to be here," she began, her hands wrapped around the cup of tea I had made for her. "I know what I did to you, Daniel. I have carried that guilt every single day for 15 years. But I am desperate, and you are the only person in this world who I trust to help me." I sat across from her, maintaining distance, protecting myself even as my heart screamed at me to close the gap between us. "What happened, Sarah? What could possibly be so terrible that you would come to me after all this time?" She took a deep breath, and what followed was a story that would change both of our lives forever. Sarah had married Marcus Webb 3 months after our college graduation. Her parents had pushed for the match since she was 16 years old. Marcus came from old money, his family owned half the commercial real estate in the city, and marrying him would secure the Chen family's social standing forever. Sarah had resisted for years, but when Marcus proposed with a ring that cost more than most people's houses, and her parents made it clear that refusing would bring shame upon the entire family, she felt trapped. She had loved me, she said, had loved me with every fiber of her being, but she was young and scared and desperate to please parents who had sacrificed everything to give her a good life in America. The first few years of her marriage were tolerable. Marcus was charming in public, attentive when it suited him, and generous with his wealth. Sarah had everything money could buy. A mansion in the most exclusive neighborhood. Designer clothes. Luxury vacations to exotic destinations. But behind closed doors, the man she had married was slowly revealing his true nature. It started with small things. Criticism about her appearance. Comments about her weight. Subtle put-downs disguised as jokes at dinner parties. Marcus would make her feel small and inadequate, then buy her expensive jewelry to apologize. The cycle became predictable, but Sarah convinced herself that this was simply what marriage was like. Her parents seemed happy with her choice, her friends envied her lifestyle, and she buried her unhappiness deep inside, telling herself she should be grateful for everything she had. Then came the isolation. Marcus began finding reasons why she should not spend time with her friends. He questioned her about every phone call, every text message, every email. He installed tracking software on her phone, claiming it was for her safety. He convinced her to quit her job as a graphic designer, saying she did not need to work when he could provide everything she needed. Within 5 years of marriage, Sarah had lost her career, her friendships, and her sense of self. The emotional abuse escalated into something more sinister. Marcus began controlling every aspect of her life. He decided what she could eat, what she could wear, when she could leave the house. He monitored her spending down to the penny, despite having more money than they could spend in 10 lifetimes. He gaslighted her constantly, making her question her own memories, her own perceptions, her own sanity. There were nights she would lie awake wondering if she was going crazy, if everything was her fault, if she was as worthless as he constantly told her she was. When she became pregnant with their daughter Lily, Sarah thought things might change. She hoped that becoming a father would soften Marcus, would help him see what truly mattered in life. But instead, the arrival of their daughter only gave Marcus another weapon to use against her. He threatened constantly to take Lily away if Sarah ever tried to leave. He told her no court would give custody to a woman with no job, no income, no support system. He reminded her that his family had the best lawyers money could buy, that she would never see her daughter again if she tried to escape. For 8 years, Sarah had lived in that prison. She had smiled at charity galas while dying inside. She had posed for family portraits that would appear in society magazines while counting down the hours until she could escape to the bathroom and cry. She had watched her daughter grow up in that toxic environment, seeing Marcus slowly begin the same pattern of control and criticism with Lily that he had perfected with her. And it was that final realization, the understanding that her daughter was now becoming a victim too, that had finally given Sarah the courage to act. "I filed for divorce 3 months ago," Sarah said, tears streaming down her face. "I thought I was finally free. But Daniel, you have no idea what I am up against. Marcus has an army of lawyers. His family has connections to judges, to politicians, to everyone who matters in this city. My lawyer dropped my case last week because Marcus made it clear that anyone who helped me would face consequences. I have gone through 4 attorneys in 3 months. No one will take my case now. They are all afraid of him." She reached across the space between us and took my hand, and I felt electricity shoot through my entire body. 15 years of carefully constructed walls began to crumble with that single touch. "You are the best family lawyer in the state, Daniel. I have followed your career from afar. I have read about all the cases you have won against impossible odds. You fight for people who have no one else to fight for them. You take on cases that other lawyers run away from. I know I have no right to ask you for anything after what I did to you. But I am not asking for myself. I am asking for my daughter. Lily deserves better than to grow up the way I have lived. Please, Daniel. Please help me save my little girl." I should have said no. Every logical part of my brain screamed at me to refuse. Getting involved with Sarah again would reopen wounds that had taken years to partially heal. Taking on Marcus Webb meant going to war with one of the most powerful families in the city, potentially destroying my career in the process. The smart thing, the safe thing, would have been to give her some referrals to out-of-state attorneys and wish her well. But as I looked into those brown eyes, I knew I could not walk away. Not because I was still in love with her, though some part of me probably was. But because I had become a lawyer for exactly this reason. I had witnessed my own mother suffer in a terrible marriage, had watched her struggle through a brutal divorce when I was young, had seen how the system failed women who did not have money or connections. Every case I had taken in my career, every battle I had fought against wealthy abusers who thought their money made them untouchable, had been in service of the promise I made to myself when I was 12 years old. I would become someone who could fight for people like my mother. People like Sarah. People who had no one else in their corner. "I will help you," I said, watching hope bloom in her eyes for the first time since she had arrived. "But Sarah, you need to understand what we are getting into. This is going to be the fight of your life. Marcus will use every dirty trick in the book. He will try to destroy your reputation, your credibility, your relationships with everyone you know. He will try to turn your daughter against you. He will try to break you in ways you cannot even imagine right now. Are you prepared for that?" She looked at me with a determination I had never seen in her before. "I have spent 15 years being broken, Daniel. I am ready to put myself back together. No matter what it takes." That night, after Sarah had left to return to the women's shelter where she had been staying, I sat alone in my apartment and made a decision that would change everything. I would take this case. I would fight Marcus Webb with everything I had. And I would finally confront the feelings I had buried for 15 years, whatever that might mean for both of us. The next morning, I walked into my law office and called an emergency meeting with my team. I had 3 associates and 2 paralegals who had been with me for years, people I trusted completely, people who shared my mission of fighting for justice regardless of the odds. I told them about Sarah's case, about Marcus Webb's reputation and resources, about the risks we would be taking. I gave them all the choice to step back, no questions asked, no consequences. Not a single person left the room. My senior associate, Maria Santos, a fierce attorney who had escaped her own abusive marriage 10 years earlier, was the first to speak. "I came to work for you because you never back down from doing what is right. If we cannot take on cases like this, then what is the point of everything we do? I am in, Daniel. All the way." The others echoed her sentiment. In that moment, I felt a profound gratitude for the team I had built, for the shared values that held us together. We were about to go to war against a Goliath, but at least we would not be fighting alone. The first few weeks were spent gathering evidence and building our strategy. Sarah had been remarkably smart about documenting Marcus's abuse, despite the enormous risks involved. She had secretly recorded conversations where he threatened her and Lily. She had kept a journal hidden in a storage unit, chronicling years of emotional and psychological torture. She had taken photographs of her phone and computer after discovering the spyware Marcus had installed. She had collected financial documents showing how Marcus had hidden assets and controlled every penny she spent. But Marcus was not going to go down without a fight. Within days of learning that I had taken Sarah's case, he launched his counterattack. His lawyers filed a motion accusing Sarah of parental alienation, claiming she had been poisoning Lily against her father. They produced witnesses who testified that Sarah was mentally unstable, prone to wild accusations, possibly delusional. They subpoenaed my financial records, looking for any impropriety they could use against me. They hired private investigators who followed me everywhere, photographed everyone I met with, and dug into every aspect of my past. Then came the media campaign. Marcus's family owned significant shares in the local news conglomerate, and suddenly stories began appearing about troubled divorce cases and false abuse allegations destroying innocent fathers. Sarah's name was never mentioned directly, but anyone who knew the details could connect the dots. The message was clear. This is what happens to women who try to fight us. This is how we destroy anyone who challenges our power. The pressure was immense. Several of my other clients, intimidated by the attention and scrutiny, chose to find other representation. My building's management received complaints about suspicious activity around my office. My car was broken into twice in 1 month, with nothing stolen but clear messages left behind. Even my elderly mother received anonymous phone calls warning her that her son was making powerful enemies. There were nights during those first months when I questioned everything. Was I being reckless, putting my career and my team at risk for a woman who had broken my heart 15 years ago? Was I letting personal feelings cloud my professional judgment? Was I doing this for Sarah, for Lily, or for myself, to somehow prove something I had been trying to prove my entire life? Friends, if you are still with us in this emotional journey, please take a moment to show your support. Hit that like button, share this video with someone who needs to hear this story, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss our inspiring content. Your engagement helps us reach more people who need hope and encouragement. Now let us continue with this powerful story, ***. It was during one of those dark nights of doubt that I received an unexpected visitor. Lily, Sarah's 8-year-old daughter, had somehow convinced her grandmother, Sarah's mother, to bring her to my office. The grandmother waited outside, clearly uncomfortable but unwilling to deny her granddaughter this mission. Lily was a miniature version of Sarah, with the same brown eyes, the same determined set to her jaw, the same quiet strength hiding beneath a gentle exterior. She walked into my office carrying a manila folder that looked enormous in her small hands and sat down across from my desk with a composure that would have been impressive in someone 3 times her age. "Mr. Morrison," she said, her voice steady despite the obvious nervousness in her eyes, "my mom does not know I am here. She would be mad at Grandma for bringing me. But I needed to talk to you because I heard my mom crying last night. She cries a lot, but she always tries to hide it from me. She thinks I do not know how scared she is." I leaned forward, giving this brave little girl my full attention. "What did you want to tell me, Lily?" She opened the manila folder and spread its contents across my desk. Drawings. Dozens of drawings done in crayon and colored pencil, with the unmistakable style of a child artist. But the subject matter was anything but childlike. "My therapist told me that drawing helps me express my feelings," Lily explained. "She said I could draw anything I wanted, and no one would judge me. So I drew what I see at home. What I hear. What happens when Daddy gets angry." I looked through the drawings with a growing sense of horror and heartbreak. A tall figure with angry red lines around it, yelling at a smaller crying figure. A child hiding in a closet with her hands over her ears. A woman with tears falling down her face, sitting alone at a table while a man pointed a finger at her. A family portrait where the father's face was scribbled out in black crayon, while the mother and daughter held hands tightly. "I love my daddy," Lily said quietly, "but I am scared of him. I do not want to feel scared in my own house anymore. My mom told me you are going to help us, and I want you to know that I will be brave. Whatever I have to do, whatever I have to say, I will be brave for my mom. Because she has been brave for me my whole life." In that moment, looking at this remarkable child who had endured more in 8 years than most people face in a lifetime, I felt every doubt wash away. This was why I had become a lawyer. This was why I had built my career fighting for people who seemed powerless against impossible odds. This was the purpose I had been searching for, the meaning that had eluded me during all those lonely years. I promised Lily that I would fight for her and her mother with everything I had. And I meant it more than I had ever meant anything in my life. The custody hearing was scheduled for December, 2 months after Sarah first appeared at my door. In those weeks of preparation, something unexpected began to happen between us. The long strategy sessions at my office stretched into dinners at nearby restaurants. The professional boundaries I had carefully maintained began to blur as Sarah opened up about her years of suffering, and I found myself sharing things about my own past that I had never told anyone. I told her about my father, who had abandoned our family when I was 7 years old. I told her about my mother's disastrous second marriage to a man who controlled and belittled her the same way Marcus had done to Sarah. I told her about the day I came home from school to find my mother with a black eye and a split lip, and how I had felt completely powerless to protect her. I told her how that powerlessness had driven me to law school, had shaped every career decision I had made me the person I was today. Sarah listened without judgment, without trying to fix or minimize, and I realized that she truly saw me in a way no one else ever had. Not the successful lawyer or the confident advocate, but the wounded boy who had grown into a man still fighting the battles of his childhood. "We are the same, Daniel," she said one evening as we sat in my car outside her shelter. "Both of us have been trying to save our parents through the work we do. You became a lawyer to fight for women like your mother. I became a victim because I was trying to be the perfect daughter my parents wanted. Maybe that is why we connected so deeply all those years ago. We recognized something broken in each other." She was right, and the